Today, welcome to Darryl Gibbs, who is the latest guest in our Law and Leadership series. I am Renee Hutchins. I am the Dean at UDC Law, and I have the next 50 minutes to dig into what it is Darryl Gibbs does with Equitable Financial Life Insurance Company. So he's
Yes.
going to tell us a little bit about his experience, a little bit about his path to that space, a little bit about his path through law school. And then we'll find out some fun stuff during our lightning round. So, Darryl, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this, and I look forward to our discussion.
Okay, great. So my first question is,
Mhm.
I need you to tell. I've buried the headline. So I have. Tell me a little bit about your current position,
Yeah, sure.
and tell me how it is somebody gets to be a chief diversity officer at a life insurance company. Like, what
I
does that
know,
even
right?
look like? What do you do? What?
You know what? It's a whirlwind of how I got here, right? So I'm a lawyer by trade. That's why we're here talking, right? I went to St. John's Law in New York. I'm from New York, born in Brooklyn, right? Born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. Love DC though, love DC. And went to law school later in life. I didn't go to law school until I was 30. It took me 12 years to finish my undergrad. Didn't go to law school until I was 30. So now I'm a newly minted lawyer at 33 years old, working in corporate America. Um, One of the things I think about, and I think was true at the time, I had a little bit of arrested development. So I worked at one of the larger firms, top 10 corporate firms in the country, Proskauer Rose, lost that job, and then wound up working at a not-for-profit for a while. I found this job at Equitable in 2005, and I came in and I started running our contract management division, and I started doing everything contracts. And I did that for 15 years. I was able to, from my experiences that I had in law school and at Proskauer, I was able to turn my mess into a message, right? I was able to turn my failures, if that's what some folks want to call them, setbacks, into bounce backs. And so when I got to Equitable here, I was able to talk about all the things I had done in the past that did not probably amount to what I thought I wanted. And I was kind of like a never again attitude, lemons into lemonade type of attitude. So I took the role at Equitable, and I was in that corporate division for 15 years. I elevated in that organization to the point of having 5 lawyers and 2 paralegals work for me. And we were doing probably over uh, maybe close to 800 million, almost $1 billion in agreements a year for everything that we were doing. And you think about a life insurance company, right? What do? We do a whole host of things, from investments to selling life and annuities. Um, uh, you know, we, and we have a lot of income coming in, so we invest a lot. So there's a lot of vendors that we need to help us with all of the things that we're doing. So I was doing vendor agreements, IT agreements, all of those things. And when in 2020, when what we now know to be the murder of George Floyd happened, I found myself to be the most senior African American in this organization. And what I mean by that is senior by rank, not the one that had been long tenured, but by rank, I was the most senior. The former general counsel had resigned. He was African American. He had resigned. There had been a number of other folks throughout the years that had resigned. And I found myself as the most senior Black person there. And when we had our conversations with our leadership about our response to George Floyd, and what was going on in the streets in terms of those reactions and those protests, and, if you will, the racial equity awakening that was happening, they looked to me. They kind of turned to me and said, hey, you're very vocal in the organization. You have 15 years of credibility as a lawyer in the organization, having worked for everyone from the CEO on down and done deals for everyone, um, and have a wide network in the organization. Can you help us? I said, no. No, not at all, because I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in real work. I think diversity and inclusion is a head fake. I do my stuff on the side. By the way, what I've done over the years in legal, I developed an internship program for students that are in their last year of college, that's somewhere between college and law school. I would have 2 or 3 interns come in and I would give them that kind of formal corporate education so that when they got to law school, they would be somewhat ahead of the game. And so I did that for 10, 11 years within the legal department. And so I knew how to, I knew what diversity and inclusion was about. I knew how to develop people. I knew how to give opportunities. I knew how to make an impact in the industry. But I was doing all of that off the side of my desk. It wasn't my job. So I had the freedom. You know, Al Sharpton talks about never running for political office or never really taking a seat anywhere because he wanted the freedom to be able to move around and align himself in a way that he didn't have to be in a kind of a corporate seat or a seat where there was a lot of constraint to it. That's not what I wanted. I didn't want the constraint. I said, I'm a lawyer. I'll keep doing my thing on the side. And then
if you were doing the work already, right? So you've described setting up an internship program for kids pre-law school, right? So you're doing the work already. So obviously you believed in the substance of the work.
Absolutely.
So why, when the company comes to you and says, let's formalize this, why was your initial response,
Yeah, because as we think about corporate America, you know, the last 20 years or so, we haven't really seen any gains in corporate America. They've had diversity and inclusion programs forever, but we hadn't seen real transformation of companies with respect to representation, with respect to inclusivity. We haven't really seen it. And the roles were about boiling the ocean of diversity. The roles were being pushed further and further down. They weren't no longer reporting to the CEO or the COOs or those in the C-suite. The role itself wasn't a C-suite role. And so it wasn't attractive to me for those reasons. No real power, right? And so I said that to them. I said, I'm good. No real power. I don't need it. And they said, well, what do you need? And I started naming things that I needed. And they kept saying, okay. They kept saying, okay. And I said, wow, okay. They keep saying, okay. This doesn't sound right, right? Because they're like, we're serious about this. We're serious about this. And then I went to which I encourage a lot of students to do, and individuals generally. I went to my personal board of directors, right? Those that are in my life that love, know, and respect me, and looking out for my best interests. And I said, as a lawyer who's been doing this for a while, and I am high-ranking lawyer in the organization, well respected, should I leave that and go into this role? And a number of folks said, absolutely. You're the right person for the right job right now. And I said, okay.
Gave you the confidence to ask for the things that you were asking for?
Because if they said no, I didn't, who cared? I had a job already.
Gotcha.
So if they said no, and I'd be like, I don't really care, then I'm good. I'll move on. So, gotcha. But the real question is, how do I keep that confidence once I had the seed? I had nothing to lose in asking for it. In my mind, started to think I had everything to lose in executing on it. But now I had a job to lose if I got it wrong.
Right.
I didn't have a job to lose before if I got it wrong.
Gotcha.
And so that was the turning point. And that's what really is pushed me forward. And that's what I've been really trying to perfect, that ability to keep the same level of energy, that ability to keep the same attitude of push, 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 and finding the right people that I can surround myself with that helps me, that would help me continue with that energy.
Inside the company.
And out.
Okay. And so in some sense, you sort of took a leap of faith, right?
Yes.
That equitable.
I bet on me.
Right. But you also bet on the company, right?
Yes.
Like, bet on the company not setting you up for failure, and on the company not just saying yes, right? But actually that they were going to optionalize the yes, that they were going to give you the power to do the things you need to do,
power and the
budget. Right? What was it, your personal board of directors that gave you the confidence to take that leap of faith? Was it your understanding of the company that you had worked for the last 15 years, right? What was it that gave you the confidence to say, this isn't just another head fake? Like, this is real and this could make a difference?
Yeah, it's all of the above. It's all of the above. It's first, I think you first and foremost start with the self-confidence that you have. You have to have a level of self-confidence to say, you know, I'm here, I'm in this role, I've been in a legal role for a number of years, I've been successful, I can probably do anything. I can figure this out, right? Secondly, when you think about your significant others and those in your board of directors, when they start saying, "Of course you can. What are you talking about? Why would you be second guessing yourself? You've already done it by evidence of the internship that you created, by evidence of the awards that the various bar associations have given you. You've already made yourself a name in the legal industry as someone that could create some real change. You've already done that. So now you're just this is going to be your role now. That's it, right? And then the organization by saying, we're going to surround you with people that already have a certain level of experience. We're going to support you. We're going to get you a corporate coach, right? So you understand the C-suite dialogue and how to use this. The CEO is going to mentor you, and you're going to report directly.
You asked for, or was that stuff that they gave you?
A combination of those things. I had known about these corporate coaches for C-suite folks, so I was like, I want to experience that. I said, instead of reporting to, now the head of HR and the COO is the same person, but I said, I want to report to the COO. I want to report to the chief operating officer. I want to report at that highest level.
Why was that important to you?
Well, it was important to me because that's what the power is. What was most important to me was to grab power, right? And say, and how do I utilize that power once I have it? So I had to make sure that I had the power to go into anyone's meeting. I had the power to go into to influence other budgets. I had the power to influence hiring, to influence promotions. I had the power to do all that. And the only way I had, one of two ways to get that power is from someone that already has that power and they kind of give it to you, or I just bowl people over. And maybe there's a combination of the two that's going on here. You got to have to push a little bit, but you have to first know that when you walk in the room, the person that kind of owns that room is saying, that's my surrogate. Whatever he says, you all need to think about and really think about it because I'm asking him to do this thing for us. And so I had the letter from the king, if you will, right? I can go around to any place and show them the letter, show them the crescent, and say, this is from the king. And they're like, oh man, okay, what did the king want us to do? Well, he wants you to increase representation in your most senior levels of your organization. Okay, now I got to think about.
Were you imposing the processes on people, or were you just giving them targets to shoot for and saying, figure out how you get there?
I think it has to be a little bit of both. It's funny, right after this, I have it later on today, I have a meeting with our general counsel about his area, which he has a great, he's a Latino, and he's a new general counsel, he's Latino, and he's deeply involved in the Latino community and diversity and inclusion in of itself. And so I'll have a great conversation with him about his area, what his leadership looks like, how he can get better in the different things that he has out there. So what I'm asking them to think about is, how do we create a process collectively, thoughtfully, together, that we can move the dial on representation, but not only representation, but also this feeling of inclusiveness, this feeling of belonging, the feeling that I could speak up when I see that something is not right, that I could speak up when I have an idea about a new product, a new approach, a new way of doing things, and that I think that my voice is being heard and respected and that folks are taking me seriously. That's what we really want to foster here. That's what we really want to create, because once you have that confidence, right, and this is for the students, right, once they have that confidence, then they can step into a space with the level of confidence that somebody's listening to me. But it has to be two ways. I have to have the confidence to step in, but the organization also has to say, I want you to step in. You belong here. I need to hear your voice. Let me hear your voice.
And so you said that in stepping into the role, felt like had the backing of C-suite, right? The higher ups, the execs.
Yep.
Did you receive any pushback from sort of the rank and file, or from the folks who you would be going to say, diversity is a good idea, let's talk about why?
Yeah, I can give you a whole list of levels of pushback and words that are used. Everything from strong words of why we dealing, and by the way, we have a focus, right? Because we're not boiling the ocean. We're focused on the Black community. right? For the first year, we focused on the Black community, and now we're still focused on the Black community. We have a task force that's especially focused on the Black community. And for our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, we're adding in women and Latino Hispanics.
How was that decision made? Was that decision made because this initiative grew out of the George Floyd murder, or sort of is it because Equitable faced particular challenges with regard to the African American community? Right? Like why was that focus decided upon?
I think corporate America faces particular challenge when it comes to African Americans in corporate America at the highest levels. And so what we recognize is that corporate America faces a challenge. And so I think what happened with the George Floyd and the reaction to George Floyd was just a confirmation of their problems out there, a confirmation of that my company, corporate America, generally, my company specifically, and I think a lot of folks can say their company specifically, are struggling with representation of black Americans in their organization at the highest levels, of feelings of inclusiveness or belonging, particularly from their Black employee base. What we see at our company and others is that we're bottom heavy. We have a lot of Black employees that come in from the entry levels, and it thins out really quickly. And so I think it was a recognition of all of that that had us say, hey, listen, if we want to get anything done, let's create a task force that has a singular focus. Let's actually hire people into that task force. I hired 11 people, and all they do every single day is they think about Black people. What are we going to do for our Black employees and advisors? So we've started a number of new programs out there. We have about 150 Black employees and advisors in programming that we've had. We've promoted folks. And when I say that, promoted folks, it's not that we've given anyone anything. It's folks that are well-deserving of promotions, of appointments, folks that have worked hard. I like to say I'm an overnight success. It took 15 years, 17 years to become an overnight success here at this organization. But people deserve the positions that they've earned in this organization, particularly the Black, Latino, and women employees that we have earned those positions. The last thing I'll say on this piece is this. It's amazing when there's a little bit of focus. It's amazing how people feel like they belong. It's amazing how people feel like they are being heard. But what's also amazing is this, is the reaction of some leadership. So for example, we have women, 2 women for the first time in our organization that are leading businesses. We hadn't had a woman lead a P&L before, profit and loss business before. We have 2 of them now. We have the head of our board of directors, the chairperson of our board is a woman. There are a number of women we have in the sales organization that are now leading branches. We hadn't had that before.
And how do you explain so Equitable is a company, right? Sure. It's a business. I assume it is profit driven, profit focused.
100%. Yep.
How do you explain to the folks there why the advances you've seen are a good thing, right? So why should Equitable care that 2 women are now leading division, or that a woman is the chair of the board?
Sure.
Apart from feeling good about it, right?
Sure.
Why should corporate America care?
I don't have to explain it to them. I'll let Harvard research explain it to them. I'll let McKinsey explain it to them. I'll let all of the periodicals and institutions that they rely on to make business decisions explain it to them. And they have. What they've said is this: the more diversity you have, the more profitable you are. Those that have high diversities in their leadership ranks, those are the most profitable organizations out there. And they put percentages on. I'm not going to go through the percentages, but they tell you the percentages from the lower ones to the higher ones, right? And so guess what? Diversity equals winning. It equals profit. Because what you have now, you have a diversity of thought. You have an opportunity to create a better product, a better distribution model, a better sales model, a better response to your customer base when you have diversity in the room, right? And so it's been proven.
Why do you think
Harvard has said that, not me.
Right. But so if that's true, right? And if that's the case, though, why do you think it is taking so long for this message to resonate?
Because his head, his heart, and his hands, right? When you read the Harvard report, that's your head. You say, this makes sense. I get it, right? but your heart's not in it. So you don't really make a change. George Floyd ripped that part up and they put people's hearts in it. People that are sensible, if you will, have said, this has always been in my head. This has always resonated me when I've read that article, and they read all these articles. Every human resource professional, every business leader gets Harvard Business Review, and they read them. They get the reports from McKinsey and all the other consulting firms and institutions that they respect, and they read it. But their hearts weren't in it. And when they saw what happened with George Floyd, not exactly what happened with George Floyd. I'll say it this way. What happened to George Floyd didn't move me necessarily. Because unfortunately, we've seen that play out before. What moves me and what got me going, what got me emotional, what got me double down to invest, and I think what got those leaders in corporate America moving also is the reaction. The reaction, the sustained reaction from those young college students, those young people. I was on a call this morning with some high schoolers, right? Those young people in the streets. That's what got people reacting. Guess why? Because those young people will become adults. They will get jobs, they will buy insurance. And I'm just saying, I'm about capitalism with a big C. And so I see a customer base that's hurting. I see a customer base that I can say, what can I do for them that's not only good, but is also profitable. So I can do good and I can do well at the same time. And how do we do that? How do we focus in on a set of people that we want to do something really, really good for because we know it's the right thing, but at the same time know that there's a wealth gap there that we can help close. And in helping close that wealth gap between blacks and everyone else, not just white, but blacks and everyone else, that we have an ability to bring those black folks, those black Americans along, right? And get a lifelong client while we're doing really something really good for their families, right? For generations to come.
Right. And so how do you think we work? And in a minute, I'm going to pivot to your personal story. So we're going to get there in a second.
Sure,
But
sure.
one more high level question for a second. How do we work to ensure that the gains that we have seen in this particular moment are not lost in an American democracy that too frequently views this as a zero-sum game, right? Where a gain for one group is a loss for other groups.
No,
so
sure.
how do we avoid that unfortunate historical pattern?
Yeah. Well, one of the things again, I'll go back to a little bit. All the folks that I mentioned that have been promoted, those two women, the woman, they're not black, by the way. They're not black. So what we've seen is that when we soften the playing field, everyone else gets an opportunity. And so I'm trying to make a direct correlation to my allies to say, you also get an opportunity when we focus on the black community. Because when the black community goes first, everyone benefits. That's the first thing. The second thing is we can't take our foot off the pedal. We have to do things that are innovative and creative and new and different. Things that aren't just the same rote things that we've been doing in the past. We can't just say, here's a bunch of programs or here's a bunch of money and thanks a lot. We can't just say, hey, let's talk to the HBCU. We have to adopt them. We have to create partnerships, right? So that we're embedded in what they're doing and not give people what we think they need, but listen to them, right? And respond to what their needs are as they tell us what those needs are. And we can't let it die down. We have to keep talking about it. We have to keep making it. And then we have to show the proof points. We have to show the profit gain. We have to show the product gain, meaning we have a better product now. We have a better distribution network. We have a better this. We have more belonging. They call them ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score. What it means is this, is how likely are you going to recommend this company for someone else to work at and or to buy our products?
Uh-huh.
So our Net Promoter Score for our black employees and advisors was 8. Once we started engaging with them and talking with them and hearing them out, we got up to 36. That was around a 300% increase.
Yeah.
And guess what? We dragged everybody else along with us. So you give me a diversity dimension, they all came along. Now, not all of them increased that much, but some of them
Right.
increased by 3 points, 5 points, 6 points, but we've seen an increase. Now, it ebbs and flows. When we first started, it was the highest. It came down a little bit, but it's still higher than it ever was.
Mm-hmm. So it's
Even though
progress.
it's progress, right? So when we show the results, we show the outcomes. The head, we know it was there. The heart was broken with George Floyd. Now the hands are doing the work, and the results are coming.
Okay. So one of the things I want to ask you about, we just got a question from one of the students who's in the audience. And so you talked about at first saying no when you were asked to do the work,
Sure.
and saying, but I need and I need and I need and I need. And
Right.
then saying yes, 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 yes. And then
Right.
you finally saying, okay, this is sincere and real.
Sure.
How can our students who are moving into positions in corporate America post-graduation, moving into law firms, right, an associate's position, everybody has a great glossy pamphlet. Everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, not everybody. For the most part. Most part, folks have nice glossy pamphlets. But how can our students, or what would you recommend for students who are interested in assessing whether a company's DEI initiatives are sincere?
Right.
What should they be looking for to determine, if I go to this firm as an associate, do I really have a meaningful trajectory to the partnership track? Or if I go to this corporation, do I really have a meaningful trajectory to general counsel or to a VP position, right? What should they be looking for?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is you got to look for the people. You got to go past the glossy, go past the website, and talk to the people. And as you're interviewing, I think your questions should really be about that. What programming do you have, right? What's the what is you have to look at what their leadership looks like. What does your leadership look like? And you may even want to talk to the head of DE&I or someone in that organization to say, I really want to understand about this. I really want to know about this. What kind of if you're going to a law firm, what kind of pro bono work are you doing in the communities that you're in? Um, so I think those are the types of questions. And as you're looking at their websites, to go a little deeper into what it is they're saying they do and how are they holding themselves accountable, right? Do they have an ESG report, environmental, social, and governance? Do they care about the environment and the climate and all that we're going through? Do they care about social causes? And what does their governance look like? Who's on their board of directors? Who are they talking to? Right? Who are they aligned with? And so those are the things I would really go deep on, their alignment, and talking to someone in the DEI space, and really talking to the people generally about the sense of belonging in the organization. Can you speak up? Do you feel comfortable speaking up? What is it like in the organization? And so those are the types of questions I think will elicit some real responses. And then you make your decision. Either I think this company is on the right path. First of all, no one is there. I don't think there's a there, right? You're never going to get there. There's no utopia here, right? We keep pushing, right? But are they on the right path? Are they making progress? And can you add value to that progress they're making? Not just by showing up, by becoming active in what's going on in that organization.
And are those questions going to get students labeled as problematic, right? Are they less likely to get the offer if they're asking those questions on the front end? Are those questions that they should wait to ask after they actually have the offer as they're making an assessment about whether to accept? Or are those questions that they should really feel comfortable in this hopefully new world, comfortable asking on the front end?
Yeah, I have I have all of this swag, right? The equitable thing here, and we've done a bunch of different stuff. I have a shirt that says "Good Trouble," based on John Lewis's book and the movie. So get into some good trouble. I have a shirt that says "Black Excellence," based on one of the programs that we created. I wish I had those clothes with me now, because I would tell some of the young people to get in some good trouble. But you got to be ready for that good trouble, right? I'm not suggesting that they will be branded as anything. I think they'll be branded as inquisitive, as curious, as someone that's forward thinking, as someone that is really concerned about where they're going to work. Because I think organizations want to see the genuineness of who you are. They want to know that you're coming here. And by the way, not necessarily just for a check, but you're coming here to add to our culture, right? You're coming here to make sure that we're doing what we say we are doing, and that you're going to come here and add value to what we're doing. from a cultural point of view, and also from a work point of view, so that we can win, because they all want to win. Now, here's the rub a little bit, right? Not all companies are there yet. And so once you're doing your research about who you're applying to, you should understand and realize that it's okay to ask those questions. If you're applying to X company that, their CEO is always on a certain channel, always saying certain things, falling on the side that doesn't resonate with you, then you may not even want to apply for that organization. My sister used to work at a place, a quick story. My sister used to work at a place, and she used to call me, and she'd be whispering. And I'm like, what is going on? They don't like us being on the phone and blah, 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 blah. And all of you know it, all of you know this place, if I were to say it, I'm not gonna say it. But it was an oppressive place. And it wasn't good for her. It wasn't good for folks like her. And she quit and she left. And so I wouldn't recommend that you even apply to those types of places. You want to go somewhere where you're going to be comfortable, where you're going to add value, by the way, and they're going to add value to you. You're going to get to be able to do good work, and you're going to feel comfortable doing that good work. You don't want to be in a place where you're oppressed and uncomfortable in the first place.
Thank you. So now I want to pivot a little bit, and I want to talk about your journey.
Sure.
So you said, first of all, shout out to a fellow native New Yorker. I
There
got
you
mad
go.
love. I grew up in the city. So I wanted to talk about your path to law school.
Sure.
So you said you went back later in life.
Yeah.
Why? Right? Like, why wait? And then what was it that made you make the decision to pivot late? So UDC Law has a relatively non-traditional student profile. A lot of our students are returning students. A lot of our students are second career students. A lot of our students are older students. So talk a little bit about that experience for yourself.
Yeah. So I went to a school called Forest Hills High School in Queens. And when I left that school, just a little bit of background, right? I'm young as I'm 9, always been good in school, not a real big deal in school, never really felt challenged. So I kind of left high school with like a 68 average, kind of like, who cares? I played basketball.
I'm sorry, did you say a 6'8"?
68.
Okay, so like a high D.
High D, low C.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wound up going to a historically Black college called St. Paul's College in Virginia because someone brought home some brochures from an HBCU fair. So applied there. It was $3,000 a semester. I got in, still couldn't afford it. Got in and went down to Virginia in 1980, fall of 1985. No clue, right? I knew I was supposed to go to college, but really had no clue.
Right.
What I was supposed to do, what college I was supposed to go to. I had no advisor in Forest Hills, which was in white neighborhood, a lot of white students and Asian students. The Black and Latino students were bussed in, basically, right, from different neighborhoods, from Brooklyn and from Queens. And so nobody really spoke to me. I really didn't have an advisor that says you need to take SAT prep, or you need to look at these 5 schools and you got to have 3 in this category and 3 in that category. My son's at Morehouse. We went through this whole thing, these categories and all this other stuff, right? So
yeah. I'm a Spelman grad, so I got mad love.
I love it. So I didn't have any of that stuff. So I was doomed from the start, really. So I went there, dropped out after a year and a half. I'm from New York. I'm running around. It was in Virginia in '85. It was in a small town called Lawrenceville, Virginia. Literally, the town closed at like 7 o'clock. The local supermarket closes at 7. The closest McDonald's was 18 miles away in Emporia, a place called Emporia. So we had to drive 18 miles to get to a McDonald's. That's how small the town was. And so I got kicked out because I was running around in sort of a menace on campus as a New Yorker. And I got kicked out. So I left in the spring, that winter of '86, coming back in January of '86. I left, and I say to folks, if you know anything about Nino Brown and what was going on in '86 in New York and what that movie was about and all, that's what I came back to.
Yeah.
And particularly in Queens, there were all of these street guys that was out there. And so, you kind of run the streets. You do what you do, and by the grace of God, nothing happened to me.
Did you have a plan, or did you were just living life?
So.
And you don't have to answer that if that's going to get you into trouble.
But here's the answer to it. The answer to it is, yes, I had a plan, but I didn't know how to execute on the plan.
Gotcha.
So it was a fantasy plan. The fantasy plan was, I used to work with my dad, who had a 8th grade education, didn't graduate high school, came from the South. My mom also, same thing. They had 9 kids in Queens and did the best they could. He used to deliver Dun and Bradstreets. He used to deliver, which is the equivalent of the internet now when you try to search companies. And it was a book, a telephone book for companies. And we used to go to the city and deliver them. And I used to see these white businessmen walking with briefcases, trench coats on, and they would go up into these buildings. And I didn't know what that meant. But what I did know was that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
So my plan was to do that. Right. I joined Future Business Leaders of America when I was in high school. So I tried, but it just didn't come across. I was always interested in colleges. Whenever they came to talk to us, I was in the front talking. Yeah, I want to go. How do we do this? But it never, because no one in my family had gone before me, so I didn't have that model. So I had a plan. It was a fantasy plan. Didn't know how to execute on it. So when I came back to the neighborhood, I still had that plan in the back of my head. So in the meantime, let me live life.
Yeah.
So hanging out, living life, doing my thing, running around, partying, all type of stuff. And I met a girl who I had known in high school. I met her again, and 30 years later, she's still hanging around with me for some reason. But I met her again, and we started talking and hanging out. And at one point, she said, "What are you going to do?" I told my plan to her, this fantasy, and she said, "Well, we need to figure out how to execute on that." And so we got to the point of, okay, I worked, and then
was she in school? So was she guiding you on a path that she was on?
Yeah, ironically enough, she had dropped out also. She had gone to Adelphi, and she dropped out of Adelphi in New York, and then she transferred to UMBC, University of Maryland at Baltimore County. She transferred there. I asked her, could I come with her? She said, no, you can't come with me. And I said, okay. And so, and now she was dropping out of UMBC because she was in love and she was coming back to New York to be with somebody. And we had to figure it out. So I started to think about, what am I doing? What am I creating? And when I started to see some of the destruction in the neighborhood, drug addiction, violence, and I started to see it start to happen in my family, around me, my next door neighbor. When I started seeing all that happen, and I started to think about my involvement in that, right? And what could I do to help change that? I incarcerated myself. What I did was I told my then girlfriend, who was becoming my wife, I said, I saw an ad for Father Flanagan's Boys Town. I need to go work for group homes. I need to work with young people. So I need to right some of the wrongs. And I need to figure out, how do I impact the next generation of young men, Black and Latino men and women coming up, so that I could help out. And she said, you're crazy. What are you talking about? She had finished a program to be a physician assistant, and she had just taken a new job. And I asked her to quit her job and to take a chance on this thing. And I was talking to her the other day, and she said, I'm still following you. Because I said, we should move to South Carolina. I'm in Charlotte now. I said, we should move to South Carolina or Atlanta or somewhere. She said, I've been following you for 30 years. I'll continue to follow you. What do you want to do? And so she followed me in this path to going to work for group homes. So I worked for group homes in the Department of Juvenile Justice for about 7 or 8 years. And what was really the key, what happened was, as I'm working with young people, and I would tell them to stay in school, they started saying to me, Mr. Gibbs, why don't you have your degree? And I said, leave me alone, kid, I'm working. And I kept saying that, leave me alone, kid, I'm working. Yep. And at one point, finally, my wife was like, yeah, because she didn't get her full degree yet either. And we were like, why don't we have our degrees? And we had an opportunity to move from one job to the next. And we refused that opportunity because we wanted to find a job that would afford us the ability to go back to school. And so I went to Brooklyn, LIU in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn. I used to walk to school in the morning. And then I used to get on the train in the morning and go to my group home job. I was a shift manager from 3:30 to 11:30, a group home shift manager making $28,000 a year. That was the highest money I made, was $28,000 a year being a group home manager. And my wife and I were talking one day and we were like, what's next? And I said, well, I've always wanted to be that businessman and I always wanted to work in different areas. I love marketing, I love music, like most kids and all. And I would love to be involved in that. And she said, well, we thought about it. One of the quickest ways to get there is to be a lawyer. And literally one night, that was a decision. And I said, okay, I'll go be a lawyer then. Didn't know what that meant, didn't know what
no
to do.
lawyers around you, nobody
No
you're
lawyers
looking
around
at
me.
to say, that's what I want to be like.
I knew I had to get a graduate degree.
Right.
And in order to get into business, one of the quickest ways we thought was to become a lawyer. So and at LIU, I took a paralegal course, 18 credit paralegal course over the summer and got my paralegal certificate. Started understanding contracts or taking the course, didn't understand them, but took the courses in contracts, this, that, and the other. Talked to one of the professors who was a lawyer. He guided me through everything. I went to Pearl Def, the Puerto Rican Defense Fund, to take my LSAT, which was $250 to train for the LSAT. Took that, paid for that, took the LSAT, got a 145. Not a high mark, not a high LSAT score. And I got into 9 area law schools, including Northeastern in Boston. Got rejected from Columbia, NYU, this one now. I got into St. John's, got into, all the different schools in and around the city. And because I was from Queens and because I met my wife at St. John's because she was a cheerleader for a rival basketball team, I thought that was a good thing to go to St. John's. And that's where I got my law degree from. And that's why I went to law school.
So then what made you get out of law school? And it sounds like when you got out of law school, you first went to a big firm, right?
Yes.
Just hearing your backstory,
Sure.
Most people would think, right? Like you take the LSAT at Pearl Def, you're working in a group home. That kid is tracked for a public defender's office.
Absolutely.
What made you go in the opposite direction?
I had the same plan still in mind. I wanted to be in business. I never had, and I tell students nowadays that a lot of students that I've mentored and talked to over the years, they get into the law, they come to the law for a variety of reasons. A lot of them, particularly from the Black and brown communities, come into law to try to right some wrong. Can I be honest?
Yes, absolutely. We love honesty.
I came to law to make some money.
But doing well and doing good, presumably, are not mutually exclusive.
Not mutually exclusive at all in my life. Never been. I can do well and I could do good at the same time. And that's what I wanted to do well and do good. And the reason I always talk money, I was making $28,000. 3 years later, I was making $125,000 when I left law school and got into the law firm. I was making $125,000. Now, I lost that job. Right? You at
the firm before you lost it?
I'm sorry?
How long were you at the firm before you lost the position?
A year and a half.
Wow.
So I got there in 2000, 9/11 happened, and I was out February 2002. I was gone March 2002.
What gave you the wherewithal to say, head down, straightforward, I'm going to recover from this?
Oh, I don't know about head down, straightforward. Nothing's a straightforward path. It's all a winding road. And that's what's important too. But you just persevere. There's always peaks and valleys, there's ebbs and flows. Nothing goes straight. You see a fork in the road, take it. I don't know. Just figure it out. Like just keep moving. Football analogy is 3 yards at a time. Keep moving your feet, right? Keep shooting. If you're a shooter, keep shooting. You're going to hit one sooner or later. That's all it was for me. I just kept shooting. I just kept saying, I got to figure it out. It is what it is, right? I got to figure it out. What can I do? One of the things I realized was this, and it was a Jewish counselor who talked to me. And the reason I use race a lot of times is because we often think that the form of help looks like us all the time.
Yep.
Right? And it doesn't necessarily always look like you. It might act like you, it might sound like you, it might feel like you, but it might not look like you. So be aware of that, right? So this white guy starts talking to me. He's an outplacement counselor, and he's talking to me about you should be yourself. You seem like a cool guy that you're this, you're that. Why are you trying to be like them? You got fired trying to be like them. Be a little more yourself. And so I'm a little bit urban. I'm a little bit corporate. I used to say I'm a little bit hood. Someone said, say something different. No, but I'm a little hood. I'm a little hood and I'm a little corporate, right? And so when I started being myself, when I started using lyrics in my presentations, right, it started resonating with people the same way they might use Guns N' Roses or Bruce Springsteen references or, you know, Metallica references. Why can't we use Jay-Z references? Why can't we use Drake references in our presentations or in our descriptions of what we're trying to communicate, right? And so they can use their pop culture. Why can't we use ours? So when I started being more of myself, I don't have to be perfect from a grammar point of view. I have a little Queens, Brooklyn diction in me. When I started kind of like embracing it, that's when I started finding success. When I got to Equitable and I told them a version of this story, and I said, never again. I'm the lemonade man. I turn lemons into lemonade. I'm going to be good. They said, okay, we'll give you a chance. We'll hire you in about a year and a half or so. We'll look to promote you. 8 months later, they were like, we need you to run this department.
Wow. So presumably that was because some element of yourself was also committed to excellence, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't just committed to authenticity. It was also committed to producing excellence.
Yeah, I think that's the constant underlying is your craft, clearly, who you are, right? How you deliver what you're doing. I started off by saying I've always been smart in school, so I knew I could produce excellence, right? But you need the challenge, right? And you need to accept the challenge and produce that excellence. Be willing to take that feedback and be willing to get better. So constant feedback, constant talking and giving and taking to people, just constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to sharpen that iron even more, even more, even more so, always.
Okay. All right. So this has been very, very fun, and I just realized that we are running
Yes.
close on time. So I gotta
Yes, 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 yes.
bring us home. So I got two questions for you before I jump to the lightning round. One
Okay.
thing. Is there anything that you wish you had known in law school?
No,
Nothing?
no. It is what it is, right? So you have to experience things.
I think that is the first time I have had that answer. Talk to me about that.
Because you got to experience what you have to experience. When I first got to law school, I had a professor who spoke French, and she said, and she came in and she said, "Parlez-vous français?" And she started talking, and I was like, "Am I in the right class?" And she talked in French for 5 minutes, and it was like, and most people are looking around, and it might be one or two people in there, parents or whatever, they've been afraid, you know, but most people are looking around. And she said, this is what law school's about. It's going to be foreign to you. You're not going to understand anything. Eventually, you'll start to understand it. So by November, I didn't start getting it until late October, early November. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I think I got a little bit of it. And then talking to professors, you're going back and forth, and then you're learning. By the time test taking time comes in, then you have a sense of what you try to do. I got an A plus in real estate law and the certificate and all that stuff. And then the professor told me, oh, you had the wrong argument. He said, but here's the deal. You had to write analysis. And you stuck with it. It was the wrong answer, but you walked that answer down perfectly. You kept going. You uncovered every aspect of your answer that you had perfectly to the point you got an A plus. It was the wrong answer, but you got an A plus. And I was like, wow, okay. So I can make an argument. Now, I can be a Republican or a Democrat or independent. I can make an argument, and some folks are going to look at that as that's the total wrong answer. But if I walk that argument down, I walk it down, they're going to say, well, okay, I get it. I don't still agree with it, but I get what you're saying.
Right. The analysis is solid.
The analysis is solid. I might not agree with it, but the analysis is solid. And so that is what I think we all need as lawyers. But no, I don't think I needed to know anything other than being ready to absorb everything that was there.
So the last formal question for you.
Okay.
So you've talked a little bit about authenticity and your leaning into authenticity, and that being sort of the moment when you started to develop a successful professional identity, right? Yeah. Any other advice that you would give to students coming up in the current environment?
So advice for law students.
Yeah.
Again, soak it all in, right? I mean, I just think, I just think that sometimes, and I'm not saying you, and I appreciate this interview, but I think sometimes that's cliched, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the advice you give law students? I don't know, buy books, walk in the classroom, read books. I don't know what, I mean, just like you're a student, be a student, be curious, be willing to ask questions. You know what? Put yourself out there a little bit. Sit in front of the class, things like that, right? Pay attention and raise your hand. And when I know professors calling you, still doing, I believe they're still doing this, the Socratic method, calling on you and making you embarrassed, sit in the embarrassment. Spin your wheels a little bit trying to answer the question. And then go to the professor afterward and say, okay, here's the question that I have for you. Here's the answer that I think it is. Tell me where I'm wrong or right. So when you have a question, always have the answer. Don't ever, life. This is not for law students. This is life. Don't ask a question you either don't want the answer to or don't already have the answer to, because you ain't gonna like the answer. So have an idea of what the answer could possibly be. 1, 2, 3. It could be either one of these three. The worst thing in the world, the best thing in the world, and the thing in the middle, right? But don't go in blind on anything. That's the first thing. So when you go to your professors, have a sense of what you think the answer might be. Do some work, So I don't know, read books, sit in front of the class, do some work, be curious.
I love it. I love it. So that was a perfect. You do have an answer and advice for them. You do. You just think you don't, but you do. All right. So we are now going to pivot to the exciting part of all of these interviews, which is the lightning round.
Okay.
So, first question up in the lightning round.
Mm-hmm.
What's your least favorite word?
Probably can't.
Okay.
Don't say I can't do it. You could do it. You just don't either want to do it, you don't have the wherewithal to do it, or you don't know how to do it yet. But it's no thing, or you don't know, or someone else could do it for you and or with you. But it's not. It's a bad word. Can't. You can do it. You can just figure it out.
Tell me one song that you know all of the words to.
Well, I'm a hip hop head. I'm a child of the '80s. So maybe, but I also love some of the stuff in the '90s and all. So maybe "Warning" from Biggie.
All right, good deal, good deal. I see you. I see you, Darryl Gibbs. All right, now last question. Tell us one thing you cannot live without, and you can't say your wife because everybody's going. You can't say that.
I don't know, technology, headphones. I'm always on the phone, so my phone or something like that. My iPad. Unfortunately, it follows you to the bed nowadays, and so I can watch the basketball games in the bed because I have a TV in my room. I haven't had a TV in my room in 30 years. But
except you actually do if you have your phone and your iPad and your laptop.
I've been fooling myself the last 5 years or so with my iPads and telephones in the bedroom. And, I don't know that we can do without technology.
Okay. Well, we can. You can.
Oh, there you
go. So on that note, I want to say.
Put you on the boat with me.
I had a flip phone until about, I don't know, 10 years ago. So,
okay.
Yeah, I was that person.
Oh, gosh.
Note, I am going to say, Darryl Gibbs, thank you very, very, very much. Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Equitable. Thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge and your wisdom with UDC law students in this latest installment of the Law and Leadership Series. This has been an absolutely fabulous hour. So thank you for sharing your time and talents with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. The time flew. I appreciate it.
It absolutely did.
Thank you so much. A lot of fun.